What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother and the other great host of this show, Nick. And Nick, draft is coming up. Draft's only a month away. Lamar Jackson news, other news around the NFL. But first and most importantly, how are you, my good brother?
I'm doing pretty good. Interested in all the Lamar stuff and all the Rodgers stuff, and let those chips lie. More than anything else, I was happy to see McVay take the picture with all the coaches.
You saw him in his aviators. Him and Brian Dable were the only two in sunglasses.
Yeah, looked like a cool guy. I mean, why would you not have sunglasses? Clearly, it looks like it's peering all of their eyes. So I thought that.
It looks like it's 100 degrees there. I want to see Sean McVay get to the stage where he could wear the shorts alongside of Andy Reid and Bill Belichick. I don't know if that's some kind of. I mean, those are two of the top 5 head coaches of all time. So there's no dress code that's applicable to those two. Sean McVay kind of has to go business casual. He's got to go with the sunglasses, but still kind of fit the brand. Those other two could do whatever the hell they want and get away with it. So interesting to I think that's always fun when you see the coaches' pictures. Yeah, obviously all the team meetings are happening this weekend, the owners' meetings, the GMs. So you're getting some really good headlines. You're getting some good little sound bites from some of the top coaches, some of the top GMs. But it's fun to kind of see them all in the same place, conglomerating and bouncing ideas off of one another.
Yeah, definitely. And you'll never see a group of dads with no, reference for what to dress for. They just wore whatever they were comfortable in. So it's a funny, it's a funny amount.
Yeah, it was like a dress. The dress code was essentially you're going out to play a round of 18 holes is the dress code.
Yeah. And
Where
even still, some people managed to get ugly khakis in there. It was impressive.
Yeah, Rob Sala's wearing a shirt that's like 5X. You know, you gotta support the 315 bench. I get it. So I wanted to start off with the letter that Demoff wrote to fans, because Nick, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm very, very appreciative of what the Rams have done over the past 7 or 8 years since Sean McVay came into the building, since Kevin Demoff, was streamlining the move to Los Angeles. Since Les Snead moved on from Jeff Fisher and partnered up with Sean McVay, there have been some really great things that have happened in the last 6 or 7 years. The Rams have climbed the mountaintop. They've gotten to the Super Bowl twice. They've won it once. The culture is fantastic. They're building state-of-the-art facilities. They're building a new practice facility. So I feel like the organization in total, despite the fact that the plan that they laid out in 2023, feels like it's very much so moving in the right direction. So when you understand that, Nick, you see the letter that Kevin Demoff sends out to fans, to all season ticket holders first, and then it kind of made its way around the league. And then you see Les Snead about 3 weeks ago or so kind of come out and lay out the blueprint for 2023, 24. He named the core players, the weight-bearing walls. So I feel like I'm just very appreciative of the fact that they're this outspoken about it. I don't know any other organization in the league where the chief operating officer is coming out and writing letters to the fans because they're so concerned about fan experience, fan longevity. But Nick, I just kind of wanted to get your original POV after reading that article, because I mean, Kevin Demoff is a follower of ours on Twitter, so naturally we're kind of in his corner. But at the same time, is there any negative side? Is there any negative repercussions to sending out a letter like this?
Well, apparently there is, because the reason I found out about this letter, I didn't even know about it, but this guy, Dave Damashek, who I looked it up to make sure he wasn't a player or anything. He's not. He started on The Man Show, that horrible Spike TV show back in the day that your dad wouldn't let you watch.
Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah, Kimmel started there too. Love Kimmel. Got crazy respect for him. But Dave Damashek, he tweets, subtext for this letter from the Rams: we gave up everything for a Lombardi that Angelonians barely notice, and now the Bills do. Can you please care about us now? A GoFundMe page would be more dignified. And I'm just like, take it easy. Like, this is somebody like that actually gives a shit about what the fans want to hear and their response. And this guy just, for some reason or another, just finds a way to totally read into something that I didn't see at all. And I went in looking for that subtext because that's how I was introduced to the letter. And I was like, all he's talking about is just getting back to a Super Bowl and the steps they're taking and to not panic. I was like, okay, maybe there's like one regression year, but maybe, you can be surprised and like to where they get to and win the division or something like that. But yeah, to say that we need a GoFundMe, like where are you pulling that from? Out of your ass?
Yeah, I think the response was overwhelmingly negative, which I was not necessarily expecting. When you talk about things like sustained success throughout, your legacy with the Rams, a consistent hallmark under Sean McVay and Les Snead has been aggressive moves in pursuit of Super Bowl titles. Like that alone, that first sentence alone is enough to kind of have you pump the brakes. Right? You kind of remember back to everything they've done that's successful over the past 6 or 7 years, and then you kind of dig into some of the context that's within this piece, and it's really not that long, right? It's like 4 or 5 paragraphs. Let me be clear: our goal for 2023 is to win the NFC West and make a deep playoff run. Change doesn't mean that we can accept to take a step back. Our Super Bowl was it 56 starting lineup featured 19 starters out of 22 that didn't start in Super Bowl 53 just 3 years prior. Like that's a really good point, right? 19 to 22 players weren't there 3 years prior in the Super Bowl. That's how much turnover there is in the NFL. That I feel like is the most simplistic way that you can lay out your blueprint to your fans without them kind of jumping in, into a negative direction, blasting the team, blasting the moves. I don't want to feel stupid for feeling optimistic about this organization, but I feel like there are comments from Twitter, from Reddit, wherever it may be, where it's almost like it's kind of puts the fan in the position where, are you supposed to feel stupid for backing everything that this team does? Are you not supposed to trust the process after what we've witnessed over the last 7 years or so? I'm kind of confused as to why the feedback was so split down the middle. And I guess it's just because it's out of the norm, because what the Rams do is unorthodox, because a COO of an NFL team doesn't come out and write letters to their fan base.
Yeah.
So I guess to some that was odd.
Well, I also think, and we're not excluded from this at all because we're sitting here on a podcast. Everybody wants to be a sports reporting talking head. And it seems to be that the unanimous take right now is the Rams are trash. They gave away Ramsey for nothing. They're unloading everybody. Like, sell stock on the Rams. They're absolutely horrible. They have nothing right now. Their quarterback's broken. All they have is Kupp, who they're going to trade. Donald's going to retire. Like, it's over. They're doomed for centuries. And you got somebody like Kevin Demoff coming out and talking to the fans and saying, hey, like, yes, we may be in a position where we could regress right now for a short period of time, but our thought process is longevity wins in the future and getting to a point where our cap can be able to take in more powerful players and drafting correctly. And for him to document that and put that out in a memo, I mean, as a fan, that was great to read. But then you got people like, old school man show writers who are just finding a reason to make football news late into the season. So, and I'm so happy one of my friends tagged me in that just to make me mad in the middle of a Monday.
I think on this podcast, we wear our emotions on our sleeve. I don't think there's any holding back. We try to be as logical as possible when it comes to, transactions, when it comes to gameplay, anything in detail. We try to make sure that we're extremely logical and down the middle. But when it comes to this, I think your heart plays into it a little bit too, right? Where you become a little bit defensive of the organization who has brought you all the way to the top. So I don't necessarily know how else I could feel outside of pride for the organization that I root for when I see somebody of this level, of this caliber, come out and write something. And then Les Snead to just, he is, I feel like, the guy that you would want to bring to the bar, have 6 or 7 beers with him, talk to him for 3-4 hours. Like, he is very much that kind of person. And when he comes out and he has the microphone and he's talking about, we're in contact with Odell Beckham Jr., where, it's a sliding scale with Allen Robinson. He's fully transparent about Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Aaron Donald. I respect the transparency, and I appreciate the organization way too much to be negative about some of the moves that they've made as of recent.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think you actually probably do a better job of separating your emotions more than I do on this show. I probably let mine go a little too hard. Everybody knows that.
I don't know. You've seen me go off about Benny Skowronek. I don't know about all that.
Yeah, well,
you've seen me go off. It's, it happens.
Yeah. I mean, but that is the role of the fan, and that's,
Sure.
and I will wear that cap every day, just as I wear this St. Louis Rams one to represent, all of the turmoil. And just another thing, like, for the Rams to come out from the ashes, like the Phoenix, and be in our lifetime one of the worst organizations to watch football, like 0 or 2 in 16 seasons, just watching for like nothing but defense and maybe winning 3 games a year, like sporadically, to now being like an LA staple team, which people want to argue, but I live in LA and I see plenty of Rams gear all the time. So as much as people want to say it's a dead franchise with no fans, I mean, that couldn't be further from the truth.
I mean, how upset or can you really be when you see that David Long signs a 1-year contract, when Taylor Rapp goes to the Bills, David Edwards goes to the Bills, Baker Mayfield goes to are you heartbroken in any of those situations? My thought initially is, okay, what's the average cost per year? Are we going to be able to kind of filter them within the compensatory pick conversation? Are they going to make enough money in their next contract? Are we going to get anything back in return? Like, you have to always have that forward-thinking mentality when it comes to the NFL, when it comes to being a football fan. You have to be very much persistent, right? You have to make sure that you're consistent and you're persistent with what it is that you're a fan of, the trends within the league, how quick the rosters turn over, the salary cap increasing year over year. There are so many sliding scales in this league in its entirety. Like, when you look at 2024, the Rams are going to have their draft picks: first round, second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round, sixth round, seventh round. There's 7 picks right there, inclusive of a first-round pick. And then you got 4 more compensatory picks. You got 1 for Baker Mayfield, 1 for Matt Gay in the 6th round. And then you got 1 for Greg Gaines and 1 for Nick Scott in the 7th round. So there you go. You have 11 picks and over $60 million in cap space for next year. You're unequivocally setting yourself up for success if you can just figure out a way to get through this season. And Nick, what we just figured out via DraftKings, via BetOnline, via whatever top betting platform that you want to use, the Rams are projected to win 7.5 games this season.
I saw that.
Playing a third place schedule, 7.5 games. How much higher is that than you initially expected after the conversations that have been taking place and the reaction from the fan base over the past 3 weeks?
Honestly, it's kind of exactly where I would have put them.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Tip of the cap to you then, sir.
Yeah. I mean, just because. I mean, and that's probably because I lean more on the optimistic side these days. When you see a Super Bowl win over the last 2 years, you're going to be a little more optimistic, I think, than the than the pessimism that will crush over somebody that was a longtime St. Louis Rams fan. But I see them hovering around, like, hopefully like 8 to 9. Maybe the NFC is really garbage next year and they can like squeak out a 10th win and get a 7th seed or something, or maybe even, take the division, which I still think is possible. We have no idea the situation in San Francisco, who signed Sam Darnold. We have no idea who's going to start there. They lost some great pieces. And then Seattle, like, are we really going to write home about Geno Smith's one good year? Like, I don't know. They could still be drafting a quarterback this year. And at which point maybe that's something that, they got to develop somebody there. So, and then, Cardinals are just such a wild card.
They're just bottom feeders. I think when it comes to Seattle, they're very much in a position to draft a quarterback, but they're also in a good position to be able to continue moving forward with Geno Smith and the sizable contract that they just signed him to. I'm sure they have an out after year 2 or year 3, but plenty of time to develop. San Francisco is going to be interesting. They're a heavy favorite to win the division. I think they're like minus 125 at this point or so. And then you have the Rams at plus 350. So it goes Niners, Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals in terms of favorites to win the division. So, I like the Rams' chances. And these are the opponents for next season. At home, you got the Seahawks, the Niners, the Cardinals, obviously, Eagles, Commanders, Saints, Browns, and Steelers. Those are home games next year. Eagles, Commanders, Saints, Browns, and Steelers. Optimism to be had? I would say so. They never played Pittsburgh well, but between Cleveland, the Saints, and the Commanders, I think you have a good chance to win 3 of those 5 games outside of what's in your division. And then the away schedule, obviously, the 3 within your division: the Cowboys, the Giants, the Packers, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Colts. So the AFC is a little bit more difficult. You never know what you're going to get with the Ravens. The Bengals are going to be probably the toughest team you have to face within the away schedule outside of the Niners, the Cowboys. But there's nothing that I felt like last year was such a gauntlet. When you talk about win-loss totals, you go all the way back to 17. 17 they went over, 18 they went over, 19 they went under, 2020 they went over, 21 they went over, 22 they went under. So it's time to go over again. It's time to be at 9 wins. It's time to squeak back into the playoffs and figure out your way back to what you promised, what you wrote up in a letter and published.
McVay will use 7.5 wins as fuel all season, I think, because that's the lowest we've ever seen from a McVay-led Rams team, except maybe 2017. Which
I want to say 17. They were like maybe 7. I don't even know if they were that high. Maybe 6.5.
They may have been like 6.5 then, but still,
yeah. Shout out to Cam. Shout out to Cam DeSilva, who compiled the win-loss totals over the last 6 years. But yeah, 17, they could have been like 6. Could have been 6.5. Considering they had won how many games the year prior? 2? 1? Were they
4,
1-6?
I think.
Because I know Jared went 0-7 to end the season. They were like 1-11 by the time Jared took over.
Yeah.
It was brutal. Absolutely brutal. Okay, so other Rams news. Marquise Copeland. Aaron Donald has a friend. He's got a friend who's coming back on a 1-year deal, thank God. The Rams have announced they've signed defensive lineman Marquise Copeland to a 1-year deal. They opted to not tender him earlier on in the offseason, so there was hopes that he would potentially return and work something out like this instead of being a restricted free agent. So still, it's only Coleman Shelton who's the only unrestricted free agent who the Rams ended up bringing back. And then Copeland, as a restricted free agent, they opted not to tender him, and then they brought him back. So in re-signing Marquise Copeland to a 1-year deal, like we mentioned, it brings Aaron Donald back another friend. I think that's important to have, Nick. For example, you switched high schools. You had 12 really good friends in your old high school, but you have one that you knew from an old friend, and that's your connect. That's your guy that you lean on throughout the entire season. So, just bringing you back to real life for a second. I'm optimistic about Copeland because he is coming off of career bests. It's 2022. Marquise Copeland is rising to the occasion. He played in 15 games. He had 9 starts, all career highs, 14 defensive stops, which are tackles that were caused by unsuccessful plays by an offense. That was 5th most amongst the Rams defensive linemen last season per True Media. So there's some hope, I think, to be had with Marquise Copeland. Is he the best Rams defensive lineman in terms of a rotational player that they could possibly have? No, but it's a homegrown player. It's somebody that they've had within the system. It's somebody that Eric Henderson has worked with very closely. And I'm appreciative that they, at the very least, because we talked about in our last episode, was how do we bolster up the defensive line for Aaron Donald, try to not make his life so difficult. You bring back Marquise Copeland, and you're one little tiny step closer to getting to where you need to be. So
yeah, and the Rams social media team, turns the page and smiles and cries tears of joy because they don't have to make another thank you post, and it's actually a welcome back post instead. They play the welcome back Cotter theme song.
Welcome back.
I like this. I like the analogy of your buddy that's not really your good friend, but you're bringing him back. It's like, you kind of wish you had like your better pal Greg Gaines here, but it's nice to have a familiar face, at all. It should be. I mean, here's hoping to another career high year. I mean, we have no idea who's going to be playing next outside of Donald. So, maybe he's an outbreaking star like Greg Gaines was, which is possible.
Yeah, no, it's not impossible. I mean, Marquise Copeland has, you say they has the ability in him. You just haven't seen enough of him quite yet. And you haven't seen him put Marquise Copeland on a defensive line with Greg Gaines and Von Miller and Aaron Donald. And obviously he's going to look a lot better than he is. This year will be a big prove it year, though. If you can get stuff out of him, you get something out of Jonah Hill. I'm trying to think of some of the other interior defensive linemen, rotational players, and there's really not that many to be had. I would like for them to bolster that within the draft. And then from an edge rusher perspective, it's like Michael Hoyt, Daniel Hardy, Keir Thomas. What else you got there? So that's where it's going to be difficult, is bolstering up the edges and then the interior. But I like that they brought back Copeland because it was the very, very least that they could do.
And that's what they did. The very
And that's
least.
what they did. Yeah, out of respect of at least one player, they brought back somebody that wasn't an unrestricted free agent.
I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, Wolford's a good example of a guy who's a restricted free agent. You haven't heard anything about him yet, have you?
John Wolford?
Yeah. Likely not coming back.
Now is a good time to update that LinkedIn page, my man. I do not know if you have any. I mean, maybe XFL would be my call for you. Call up DJ. Put in the rock.
He's smart enough. I'll give him that. I will still go back to that piece on him on The Athletic where, and this is something I respect about any human being on any level. He wrote that if he writes himself a schedule, for example, from 5:30 in the morning all the way to 9:30 at night, he follows that schedule verbatim from workshop to workout to reading hours to going to bed to eating dinner. Like it is a very, very, very packed schedule that starts at 5 o'clock in the morning. So out of respect, and this is probably the template that every NFL player follows. If you could commit to that, then you're probably able to commit yourself to some kind of backup role or some kind of scout team role where you could at least earn a paycheck year to year. So I think that's the category Wolford falls in, your boy.
Yeah. I mean, he sounds really fun to party.
Not my boy.
Yeah. Well, he's not. The only time I ever gave him his flowers was last year. Not when he was playing, mind you, but when he came up with the idea to do the safety.
Yes.
Like Wolford was in McVay's ear and like, well, if you just take the safety, then we get the ball back and we're fine. You don't have to worry about anything. Which I don't know how. I don't know how Wolford had that power to talk to McVay there and make that call, but I guess he was still in his good graces then.
I think the most disgruntled I could possibly be as a football fan is if our quarterback room looks like the following. Starting quarterback, Matthew Stafford. Second string, Cam Newton. Third string, John Wolford.
I'll take Cam Newton over Wolford. Like
Monday through the backup quarterback conversation is one that I don't even want to have. Like I want to bring in somebody that has a no name, somebody that's like a Mike White, somebody that is just a general body that can come out and play that you can develop. I do not want Cam Newton. I don't want John Wolford. I just want a fresh start from the back.
I want Iguodala. Give me Mitch Trubisky. Call today.
Oh God, I'd take Darnold over Trubisky.
Too late. He's gone.
Yeah, another guy that's on his way out. I believe he just signed his contract earlier this morning. Sharp transition was Taylor Rapp. Nick, I wanted to get your opinion on Taylor Rapp. He was one of the guys that when he was initially drafted, I had a strong belief that he was going to come in and fill that Mark Barron position. And if you remember that game, Nick, that we were at with Carson Wentz and the Eagles all the way back in 2017 when the Eagles ended up going to the Super Bowl, Carson Wentz was having an MVP season. Mark Barron was in the box, blitzed. Carson Wentz tried to sneak up the middle, hit his knee right in the side, tore his ACL, MCL. And I don't know if Mark Barron was a Ram after that. I think he was still on the roster in 18, and then they ended up getting rid of him. But considering that Mark Barron is the kind of player that he is, can play in the box, can play the free safety position, is extraordinarily aggressive, I had confidence that they were going to be able to find a replacement, considering that also Les Snead, I believe his original roots were tied to scouting defensive backs for the Atlanta Falcons. I could be incorrect, but I know that Les Snead goes all the way back to Atlanta and has a familiarity with defensive backs, which is why we've hit on some solid defensive backs later on in rounds. So I was overly optimistic about what Taylor Rapp could bring to the Rams on a one-year deal with the Bills. But here were his alignments over the course of his career. So Taylor Rapp, and this is just the progression of the safety position over the last 3 years. You go to too high, right? You go to all these different alignments where your safeties have to be a little bit more athletic and more versatile. Taylor Rapp is versatile. He's just not great in the free safety role. He's not a great coverage guy. He's solid in the box. He's solid, played a little bit in the slot, but he wasn't, as versatile as some of the safeties in the league now have to be. So he was on the defensive line for 56 snaps, playing the box for over 1,000 snaps, 1,094, playing the free safety position 1,300 snaps, in the slot 725 snaps, and cornerback 40 snaps. So you had the guy all over the place, and the way that the safety position progressed in his tenure with the Rams was just really unfortunate. You needed guys that could cover. You needed guys that couldn't be overly reliant on being in the box or being on the defensive line. So it's the way that the position changed that I feel like kind of phased Taylor Rapp out of the discussion, and also the fact that the Rams just don't pay their safeties.
No, they don't.
And that's one of the guys that you considering you took him so high, you took him in the second round. If you can groom him to a level where he earns a solid second contract, that's a guy where you get a compensatory pick. And he's not that kind of player. A lot of Rams signed 1-year deals, which I was a little bit skeptical over.
Yeah, it made me think that people weren't as confident in them as maybe we had hoped. To see a lot of them take that 1-year deal, especially Bobby Wagner.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, Wagner's one of them.
Just to comment on the Taylor Rapp thing, to me, he always kind of reminded me of Lance Stevenson. You know Lance Stevenson, NBA player, big pacer, famous for blowing in the ear of LeBron James. Because I felt like
and the guitar.
Yeah, he was a big air guitar guy. He was very at times he seemed to be the best player on the field, and then other times was the reason why you were losing. So with Taylor Rapp, it was very hot and cold. Sometimes he's out there ball hawking and making picks, and other time he's missing a tackle and the guy goes for another 10 yards, and it seemed to be all his fault. Down to the game where him and Ramsey are having a physical and verbal altercation. Ravens game, and what was that, 2021 season?
It was 21, yeah.
We were there, which was so awesome. We saw the whole thing on the sideline. That was one of my favorite experiences at a football game ever. I'll be interested to see how Bills fans, think about him, because from the productivity that he had last year, I would not be happy if I'm a Bills fan.
Right. Yeah. I mean, considering it's a 1-year deal, it's a rental. You see what he can provide. He's a sub package guy at this point in his career. He's not going to be playing every single defensive snap. He'll come in special alignments. If they got to be in a dime look, you got to bring out 6 defensive backs. You want to disguise one as a linebacker. He's that kind of guy. But Nick, you're so right, because we were at that Baltimore game. It was really interesting because now obviously we know that neither player is on the roster for 2023. But the fact that they were both going at each other late in 2021 meant that there was some kind of disagreement, right? And that was in the process when Ramsey was starting to take over the play calling duties before we had Bobby Wagner. So it was the transition from Jordan Fuller's getting hurt to Jalen Ramsey's taking over play call duties to Troy Reeder has them also to Ramsey's probably barking at Taylor Rapp in terms of where he needs to be on the field. But it was a very real verbal disagreement that we were lucky enough to be a part of, because it was right on the same sideline. We sat on the same sideline as the Rams did. That game ended 20-19 with Odell Beckham Jr. scoring. I think that was the nightcap. Yeah.
Odell scores. They missed the 2-point conversion. Von Miller gets a crazy sack to push them out of field goal. I guess they weren't in field goal range yet, but still.
Yeah, I was surprised that Baltimore even scored that many points. And I think Matt Gay missed a kick, or he missed an extra point in that game too. We were like, Gay never misses. What the hell's going on? The 1-year deals are interesting. And Nick, you talked about the compensatory picks in the way that, we thought maybe their value was a little bit higher. Maybe the Rams thought that these players' value was a little bit higher also. But 1-year deals, Greg Gaines, Baker Mayfield, Brandon Powell, David Edwards, Bobby Wagner, David Long, and now Taylor Rapp. So Gaines, I would have said Gaines and David Edwards are 2 guys that should have definitely gotten multi-year deals.
Yeah. And Gaines going to Tampa, who, I mean, no offense to Baker Mayfield, but what, if that team isn't good, led by Tom Brady, what is Baker going to do? What is he going to do? I would think that Greg, maybe if he was well, I could stay here with the Rams and be comfortable, or I could go to Tampa, where he was quoted in saying, this is a corny ass place, because in the NFC divisional game, they're playing the Bucks in Tampa, and they're singing yo ho, a pirate's life for me. And he's like, this is mad corny. And then, that it's going to be your home stadium, bud. You're going to be hearing cannonballs every time the offense scores, which won't be often. 1-year deal for
Follow the money.
That definitely made me upset. I saw that and I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I wanted to see him get a multi-year deal, but considering where the contract was, it means that he was kind of within that range of players that, were making a decent chunk of change for an interior defensive lineman. But I think when he saw the market and what he determined was, okay, this is a decent chunk of change for 1 year. Maybe I haven't proven to the league yet that I'm the kind of player that deserves a multi-year contract. I'm going to go be the number one player on the Bucs' defensive line, wreak havoc, pretend like I'm Aaron Donald, and then earn another contract. So that's my hope for him, for Baker, for David Edwards, for Nick Scott. Although Nick Scott's got a 3-year deal.
That
David
one
Long,
makes sense.
it's got to be up for the Raiders.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Scott 3 years makes the most sense.
I thought so too. I thought that was a really good contract the way it was structured. One of the winners of the offseason for sure.
That made me really happy to see Scott get his money.
Same. He needed his money. Okay, so later this week, Nick and I are going to be presenting our first big board. Not big bird, big board. We'll show probably 10 or so guys that we really like. Hypothetical situations, if the Rams maybe move up into the first round, if the Rams move back into the second round, we'll give a couple of different scenarios. Players that we love with the draft, going to be 2 weeks or 4 weeks away by the time we get to Thursday. So I'm ready to go. The Rams are going to be making their first pick in 28 days come Thursday. So I'm ready to go. I am excited for the rest of this offseason. Nick, I can imagine that you very much are too. But first and most importantly, please like, subscribe, join the movement. We'll be here.
Notice how Kevin Demoff in his letter did not mention what color the uniforms would be. So I'll be here on uniform watch until we get something. I got a little ditty for you guys. I'll tell you right after this ad read. Bet online, live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports and events, whether that's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, boxing, tennis, or even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use our promo code BLEAV. Receive your rewards. Bet online. That's where the game's going to start. So what I'm hearing right now is the Rams have toyed with black. They've toyed. Yellow was always the original that they were going to have as the new uniform. They pushed the throwbacks early because there was not good testing or purchases with the bone jerseys. So they pushed white early. It was always supposed to be yellow third, but then they went back to finding out what people like and whatnot. And now it's already set in stone. But my guy seems to not be sure what is set in stone, whether it's black or yellow.
Your guy.
Yeah.
Come on. We need your guy. We need your guy to step it up. We got to tell him. We just need the name of the color. That's all. Just one word.
Yeah.
Yellow, black.
I'll get it by the end of the week, I think. I'll have it for Thursday.
End of the week. If you remember back in it was the 2020 when the original blue jerseys leaked, somebody had sent us a picture. That name will always be unknown, obviously. Close friend of ours on Twitter that got a picture, sent it to us, and then we were able to actually leak the jersey news. So I'm hopeful that we can do that again because I forgot it was a hell of a lot of fun. And if we do get access, we will certainly be leaking the yellow jersey. Oh, I'm sorry, did I just leak it?
What about?
I hope it's yellow.
Following us. You want him to see that and be like, "What the hell? You beat me to it."
I don't want any ill will with Demoff. I want him to just peruse through Twitter, see a very, very smart, insightful, logical tweet, hit the like button, and continue scrolling. That's all I want.
And then be like, You know what? I got to get these guys some free games because they have great free advertising.
There you go. Do you remember when he was on TikTok? It was during the pandemic, and the jersey news was really kind of starting to begin. And he did I could hear you, but I won't. And I was like, oh God, you have to go back and watch the original TikTok. It's a great one.
Oh, dude, I was in such a bad place. My entire industry had shut down. I was unemployed, and the Rams dropped at the time what I thought was the ugliest logo of all time. And I couldn't have been more aggressive and annoyed. And I look back and I cringe. But in the moment,
if I would have told you with that logo, they would then go win a Super Bowl in their own stadium. And then a week from today, the new Mario movie would be coming out. Would you believe me if I said that?
Well, I remember saying, and I will give myself this. I said, if they win a Super Bowl with this logo, it will be stitched with greatness. And from that moment on, I will no longer care what it is. And then, sure
exactly
enough.
Right. Exactly right. Our analogy was that Cavs t-shirt jersey. Yep.
I love that jersey.
Get a win. We love you guys. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you all. Go Rams. Peace.
Take care. See you guys.